I'd like to call the Instructional Subcommittee meeting to order today, Monday, May 1st, 2023. Deb, we have a roll call?
Ms. Dragia?
Here.
Ms. Larrabee?
Here.
Ms. Pereira?
Here.
Salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived, by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. Okay, any citizens input? No citizens input? No. Before I officially go on to discussions, I just want to acknowledge National Principals Day today, if anybody's watching. Lunch is on Kevin and Shelley tomorrow. But I do want to acknowledge all our hardworking principals in our districts. Thank you for going above and beyond. Your efforts are greatly appreciated. So kudos to all our principals. First discussion is 3.0, update on our health curriculum by Ms. Sharp.
Hi there. Thank you for having me tonight, and I feel like this is the first time I'm coming and I'm not asking for anything, so this is kind of nice. But when I was last here, you'd asked me if I could come back and just kind of give an update on how things are with the health instruction. So I just prepared for you just a little blurbs on each one as far as where we are in the curriculum, what's being offered. I also did make some, I know you've had these 100 times, but I made folders that just have the scope and sequence for all the curriculums too here, so I'll make sure I give those to you before I leave so you can take a look at those also. But just to give like kind of an overview with the elementary health, right now we're teaching elementary health in grades 3 through 5. 100% of our elementary schools are offering the program. We also have our puberty lessons that were added this year. And there's been a little angst on some pieces, but it's gone very well. And I think the teachers were surprised at how well that it's gone. But it has, and it only opened up our eyes even more so for the need for students to have these discussions, because there were a lot of questions and we had to run in additional sessions and stuff just because of the fact that the kids were really kind of hungry for the information. So I was really, that kind of solidified for me how important it was overall, besides my own personal opinion on that. As far as our middle school health is concerned, we have health that's offered in all our schools. We have had some snafus with some of our scheduling, and that's mainly because of the fact of we have so many things that we're offering the students, and then trying to make sure that everything fits within the puzzle can sometimes be difficult. And every school is a little different in their scheduling, and I know right now I have a scheduling committee I'm part of that's being led by Tracy, and we're looking at how we can best make sure that the scheduling across the board is consistent and that it offers everybody equal opportunities for anything that we offer within our schools. So we've made a lot of great strides with that, and the principals have been completely on board with working with the central admin to make sure that it's a big, huge collaborative effort, and I think it's going very well. So I see that as not being an issue at all going into the next year. And so I think we'll be really rolling where we need to be in the middle school for next year. And the high school health remains the same, as we have a Health 1 and Health 2. Students need to graduate from Murphy, need to have both courses and pass both courses. And we also offer other electives that are part of that, but those are our two main courses, and our curriculum stays the same. We do have teachers that are going to be coming together during the summer to rewrite some of our curriculum. With health, it's always a fluid process because it all depends on what's happening in the world. So a few years ago, vaping wasn't really on the agenda. Now it's one of the top ones that we're talking about. We've seen smoking rates go down and vaping rates go sky high. So, it's always what's happening within that. Social media a few years ago, we weren't having these conversations. Now it's all part of the conversations. So we always keep that fluid, but we know that we can always, though I know we offer a good program, I always know we can be better. So we're always looking at ways to improve and how we can do that. So we're working on that. And then also our K-8s, we're putting out there the survey to them, how many of them would like to come together during the summer and kind of refine our curriculum, especially as we've started the reproductive health. The first lesson that went out, that was written by myself, taking all the resources. I was trying to make that easy transition, that soft rollout for the first year. And now we're all going to come together and write those next few lessons that are coming forward for the next school year. So I think I hit everything.
Any questions?
The middle, sorry.
No, it's good.
The middle school, I know you had said there was some scheduling conflicts. From what I recall, and this is just from other schools that I've worked at, Botfin Health Life Skills program that you're using, I thought it was like 3 parts. I guess what I'm asking is, because some things were missed, are we gonna be catching up next year, or are those students just gonna, or is there a way we're scheduling like the catch up to make sure all those lessons are?
I think what it is that, like, where you have a student right now that's in 6th grade and didn't get those units, the great thing about Bonavent is it's a spiraling curriculum, so you're able to build upon that. So any of the classes that we know that we missed, we can build upon that for the next year, so they wouldn't have to miss anything.
Okay.
So that's the important piece there. It has, like, every year we'll have the different topics, but it builds, it becomes a little more aggressive based off the age of the student, so it's age appropriate.
Sure.
So they wouldn't be missing anything on that.
Sure. And the scope and sequence of the curriculum you have there, that's K
Yep.
through 12?
That is for our 3 through 8 is the 3 through 8, because we teach it in grades 3 all the way to 8.
That's right, I'm
And,
sorry, yeah.
So, and it doesn't mean that down the road you won't see me again when I'm looking for K1 and 2, so just heads up.
Because I get a lot of questions from parents regarding the curriculum and what we're teaching in health. And I usually say, reach out to the principal, to the teacher.
Yep.
You're allowed to see that curriculum. I don't know
Absolutely.
it, so it's great that I can see it and
Absolutely.
maybe answer those questions now.
Yeah, and if you have any other additional questions on it or something doesn't look and you're not so sure about it, just reach out to me or have them come out, and reach out to me. I tell, when I send out the letters, especially when we do puberty letters, I'm like, don't call the principals, don't call teachers, call me,
Okay.
so, and
All
then
right.
I can
All right,
make
good,
sure.
that's good to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Did you have something?
So the one about the scheduling, that's a little troubling. The explanation is troubling, and I'm not sure how that even happened. So just saying that, oh, we had a scheduling issue and they didn't do it, like, to me, that's not okay. We're
No,
supposed to have health, we're
I
supposed to
think
have PE, like, this is the first I'm hearing as a school committee member, that we have half the kids not getting help, like, or whatever it is. So that's sort of alarming to me.
I will say some of the schools are at 100% for health for the middle school. We just had 2 schools that it was trying to work with our different subpopulations of students and the programming that we have in the schools and making it work for everybody. It wasn't doable with every single grade. We got a majority, but I wanted to be honest in saying that there were some students that didn't have that. And that's why I wanted to come today to give you that update, because I didn't want you to hear that elsewhere, because this is, a conversation that we've been. And I'd like to give an example. One of the schools, working with the principal, we've done everything to try to get as many sessions in as possible, move this here. It was really difficult to do. And I agree with you. I'm a pain in the butt. I want everybody to have health, and I push that. But it just happened in those 2 schools. It was just really difficult.
Do you have anything to say to that?
I think that, I will say that it's, scheduling plays a role. Everybody has PE.
Yes.
And I will be honest and say, scheduling played a role, as well as training played a role for some of those teachers, for us to train them up and to deliver that curriculum. So it's twofold that we are working through in those 2 schools.
Yeah, she's correct about that with the training. As far as the reproductive health is concerned, the other health, I felt they've been doing that, but it was just to have that all rolled together, and you don't want to do one thing and not all of everything.
Sorry.
No, you can feel free to.
Is there a health teacher? Or is the teacher who's teaching health
The PE teacher,
The PE
what they do
teacher?
is divide
Yeah.
up they teach part of the
PE and then pop
yes,
health?
absolutely.
Like for our elementary, we have trimesters, so they'll have 2 PEs every trimester. But we take 1 PE out and put in health, and that was the way we could build it into the schedule to make sure that happened across the board. And that has
Sorry, middle school, is that an inclusive setting too?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, and it's the same at the high school also.
Right.
All our sub-separate population classes attend with all our regular ed classes, all inclusion.
Okay, so now the teachers that we have now, our PE teachers now, we can safely say that they're all trained?
Yes, if we
going
still want to
forward?
update on some of the training at the high school level, we have health teachers too. We just don't have, like, they're health teachers.
Right.
And then for some of my schools, at the middle school, I have designated health teachers because that's their certification license. But the others are PE teachers who have been trained. The Bonavin, this is our, I think, 5th year rolling with Bonavin training, so in the program. So they're pretty well versed in that. It was the new one that just got approved in the last year, which was the Get Real Reproductive Health.
The Get Real and the Always Changing, Always Growing, that
Yeah,
we've-
the already changing, I would go, that to puberty, that's a little easier because that one is just a
Right.
set of lessons with
Right.
where the other one, with everything going on in the
That's more
world,
the
you want to be
name,
very
right.
careful with
course.
what's being presented. We don't want to be presenting something where we're excluding anybody, but yet at the same point, we don't want to look like we're promoting anything at the same point too. We just want to give the most factual information, let students make the best decisions.
That's what school is, right? Teach
Yeah.
fact and let kids think for themselves.
Yep, that's what we want them to do.
So that's the curriculum that you're diving a little more into this
Yes.
summer and working on?
Yes.
And we'll be able to like take a look at that before September?
Absolutely, and that is in here too, the lesson that
Okay.
I actually wrote for that are in here,
Okay.
and it gives all the resources. And again, like, if there's any questions with that, please let me know.
Absolutely. All right, thank you.
I think that, I'm still a little confused on how, it doesn't
I
make sense
understand.
in some ways. You just said that there's actually health teachers in the middle schools that teach health only.
Yes, that's
And
what, like,
that
two
begs
of the
the question,
schools.
then why couldn't they just go for the time of being in, teach the other units to those special populations? Like, the more questions that I ask, it's just leading to more, and it might be the way that it was worded, but
And that might be my fault in the wording, it was just
whatever it
really
is, I'm
trying.
just saying that, like, to me, it doesn't make sense when we say, we have a health teacher that's certified in health, that's what their certification is. Then logic, I think, would indicate that we work the schedule around so that they can actually go for some, to try to make sure this is, and you might only be talking, I don't know, there's no number, so you could be talking 35 kids, I don't know, but it makes it seem like as if there's more than that, so that being said, it is what it is.
Are they full-time?
What's that?
The health teachers, are they full-time?
Yes, like example, at Henry Lloyd, we have a health teacher that's designated just for health, but then at some of the other schools, we don't. So we have
Got you.
PE teachers that are doing, the other side. At the high school level, I have just
So when you
completely
say
health
you have
teachers.
some health teachers, you're
Yes.
saying you have some at some schools?
And some not.
So some schools
Yes.
do not have them, so therefore.
Right.
But
They are PE
all the
teachers.
PE teachers are certified and are capable of
Of
teaching
doing
that.
health.
Right,
Okay.
absolutely.
We ran into some issues, but they all are and could
They're
teach
on board
that.
now.
Right.
We need
Yeah.
to do some additional.
I mean, just
work
like
with
if
them.
you're a PE teacher and you're in the gym and then all of a sudden somebody says, oh, you're gonna go in the classroom and teach it, it's like, oh, wait a minute,
No, absolutely.
So
I
it's
can
like
understand.
a big
But-
cultural shift, but we made it over that hump and now a lot of the teachers that were worried about that at first actually love doing it. And they love having those conversations with the kids.
What would you do if a health teacher was out for 3 weeks?
What was that again?
What would you do if a health teacher happened to be out for 3 weeks?
As far as like the high school level
Anywhere,
or?
anywhere.
Anywhere, just like any teacher, I would really hope that we have all their lesson plans, but I have everything because everybody submits their lesson plans to me. So we would have a sub that would be able to teach, but if it's the reproductive health, I wouldn't put that sub in that
I'm
position.
only giving you food for thought. That,
Yeah.
It's like we could probably use our staff a little more creative to so that this doesn't happen. That's
Yeah.
would be just my suggestion. We had talked at the prior meetings about the permissions, the opt-ins, the opt-outs.
Yes.
We can get data on that. I don't need it now because wasn't part of
Yep.
this. But I'm just curious to see how that went because it was sort of controversial.
Yes,
And-
I'm pleased to say that with the elementary, with the assigning, we've had a lot of the parents that have signed it. We haven't had as many opt-outs. And some of the parents that were on the fence have contacted me. I shared the curriculum with them. We kind of talked about it. Some of the parents, it was more like they were concerned if their child was mature enough and wouldn't be able to have the grasp of the knowledge that was being put out there. But then after speaking about it, a lot of them decided to sign them in. So I was glad that parents, and I've made a point to put it on the letter, to please reach out to me if you have any questions. Here's
We'll
my
get the
number,
data.
here's
Just
my
curious
email.
what they-
Yeah, I'd like
Yeah.
to see that.
We'll get
That
the
was-
data
that
for
was gonna be
Friday.
one of my
We'll get the
questions.
data.
I wanted
Yeah,
to
that's written
know
by
how
me,
that-
that goes out to the parents from the school, just to kind of put it, so it comes back to me, because that's what I'm going to be best to answer those
Right, I think
questions.
the information in that curriculum is so important
Yeah.
these days with our kiddos. And it goes back to what I believe Mr. Aguirre said, is are they going to get it eventually?
Yes.
It's going to come around, right?
Yes.
And hopefully not by the time they're out of middle school.
No,
but-
no,
Okay.
no. And we see the difference. Like when kids come up and they're they haven't had a program like when back in the past before we didn't have it.
Yeah.
And then like now when they're coming up and some of the kids have had the program, you can see the difference. Like and it's a split sometimes in the class. So we definitely want to make sure every kiddo has all that, so that they're well versed.
Now, as far as the scheduling, is this something that caught your eye in September? Is this something that you knew you were gonna predict in August, that there was gonna be an issue?
No, it was more going into the school year because you were seeing pockets of it because there's so many different terms and trimesters. So it right off the bat wasn't catching it right away because you could have a kid that has health and they don't have it till third term. So I wouldn't be looking at that student. I'd be thinking, oh yeah, they have it later in the year. But then when I was meeting with the teachers and, when I meet them in PLCs and we're going through the curriculum, they're like, oh, well, we don't know if we're going to see, the guidance counselor said they're struggling with trying some of the scheduling. So that's when it came to head, and then that's when we started the conversations, and then that's when I started working individually with the principals to see, okay, what can we do? So we went from a larger amount to a much smaller amount just because we were like, okay, let's do this, we'll move this cohort here, we'll do this over here. What ended up happening at one of the schools was some of the kids were getting double the amount because they were coming with one cohort on Monday, but then they would come with another cohort on Wednesday. So they had already had that lesson. So we figured, well, that's a negative, but it's not the worst thing in the world, so we'll go with it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Can you, go ahead.
Just, I don't want to say the same thing, but
No.
the more questions we ask, the more it gets worse, in my opinion. Like that question and the answer was worse than the first part. That we have guidance counselors that when you have you start the school year, you need health, you need PE, you need to match the things up, you need to do a schedule. What you just said is, well, they didn't figure it out until you're into the school year. That becomes a bigger issue and a bigger problem for those places. So I don't want to keep going back in it, but the more questions we ask, the worse the answers get. And that's, to me, is not helping.
Can you keep us updated?
Yes, absolutely. And I will give you that data on the opt-outs, how many we have at the
The
schools.
last thing one of the things I wanted to say is the biggest issue that I find that people are concerned about, and I'm concerned about, everybody is drug and alcohol awareness at the younger grades. And it's not an easy thing to answer, but we don't necessarily even get any answer sometimes. And it's very difficult for us to be saying, what do we do, what don't we do? Because the easiest thing to just say is, we know we need to teach the kids at the youngest grade because this is what's happening in society.
Yep.
We all know that that's the issue, but I can tell you, I don't have a good answer other than the fact that it's embedded within our health curriculum in some way or whatever, but
Yep.
if whatever you can do to try to get us a one-pager on what that is, because I think that's equally as important as some of the other pieces, so
Right.
moving forward, we have to make that a priority.
Yeah, and that is where this program, when I came in 2016, that was when the mandate went out that all schools from middle school up to the high school had to have a substance prevention program. So that's when Karen Long, and at the time was Brad Buston, they had gone through the process of looking at all of those, and then they had selected, and Desi highly recommended the Bonavin life skills. But like I've always said, it's a spiraling curriculum and has a lot of those pieces. Sometimes it can be a little dry, so that's why we have some lessons that we supplant in to kind of tie that all together.
Yeah, whatever it is, I think we just need an answer
Sure.
on it. And my only other question is, I know that your district, you're in charge of the whole district.
Mm-hmm.
Are you located at the ad building with all the other district people? What
I'm
is
at the high
yours?
school.
Your office is at the high school?
Yeah, high school, because I'm also the department head at the high school
Of,
PE and health.
so you have a dual role?
Yeah, I do
Have
PE
you
and health
always
at the
had
high
that?
school and then K
the
to
role
12.
is the PE health director
Director.
of PE health. Stationed at she doesn't have to be stationed at the high school. We actually were looking at spacing because we're actually Evolve's moving, so we're looking at moving some things around. So, but Ms. Francisco, Ms. Sharp, they don't have to be at the high school. They happen to be stationed. That's been historically, but they don't have to be at the high
Yeah.
school. We actually are looking to see where we put people.
Yeah,
so
I
that
haven't been
it
to
doesn't
see
necessarily.
every cranny of the building, but
Right.
district people, they're at a district location and not at a school.
Yep.
level.
We're actually looking at that right now.
Good, thank you. Are you?
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I'll just slide these over to Deb. She can
Okay.
give
Yeah,
those to
thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
Okay, next is 3.2, discussion and vote to refer NLL corrective action plan by Ms. Zagarella.
Hi, everybody. Zagarella.
All right, I said it.
Hi, everyone. If you take a look at what I submitted, you will see on the cover page the associated purchases with the plan. But if we flip over to page 2, I would like to take you through the corrective action plan, just to give you a little bit of background on what's happening.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second?
You sure can.
It's your first meeting, right?
It is.
Yes.
Can we just introduce her
Oh, I
as the
didn't
new
know.
person
Yeah.
so that we all get it?
Absolutely.
like-
I still feel like I'm always the new person.
Just so that everyone knows like who's talking and then.
Absolutely.
Please introduce yourself.
I'll introduce her and hand it over to her. So this is Lisa Zagarella. She's our new MLL director. She has been on board for a couple of months, but really has jumped right in, feet first, I'll say, feet first, but has done an amazing job as really not only getting to know the department, but jumping in and supporting the department and putting systems in place. So Lisa comes to us. She's worked at Henry Lord. She's been a department head for ELA. She's been a coach. She's been a teacher. So she comes with us with a lot of experience and really has been a very, very good addition to our team. So with that being said, Lisa, take it
Welcome,
away.
Lisa.
Great intro.
Thank you. So as Dr. Pont said, that I started March 1st, and the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education wanted a revised corrective action plan by April 14th. So I needed to kind of get a quick status on where we were in our corrective action, especially having been without a director, although Dr. Curley has been kind of at the helm and taking care of our corrective action plan in the absence of a director. There were I sent a draft to DESE with lots of things that need to be addressed. The top 3 that made it into the corrective action plan are what you see on this sheet on page 2, that we need to implement high quality instructional materials for MLL students across grades K to 5. That is going to just be Wonders MLL, which is the extension of our current K to 5 curriculum. So Wonders has this MLL branch that allows students to access both MLL resources as well as the core ELA curriculum. Our second piece is implementing a system of language acquisition benchmarks for all MLL students across the district. Much like students are tested in content areas, math, science, social studies, and ELA, we do not have a benchmarking system for their language acquisition, which is separate from their content acquisition. So action 2 is around that, and you can see all of the associated steps that need to take place and the resources. And then finally, to develop systems and structures for creating and monitoring ELSPs, which are English Learner Success Plans. Students have 6 years to meet their language acquisition targets. If they are not on target to exit our program within 6 years, they're put on a success plan to accelerate their growth. We do not have although we are working on these success plans, it's still skeletal as to how we put them together. So we're looking to develop a more robust system and involve more stakeholders in the success of our English language learners. So those are the 3 key points of our corrective action plan for the 2023-2024 school year. I want to pause there before I go into the associated costs and asks and take any questions, because that's a lot.
Question. Anybody? Want to go first? Want me to go first? So, reading the first page, the reader model, the MLL students, they don't take ANET, right? Do they take the ANET test?
So it depends. Yes, many of them do. Our brand new students typically do not take ELA
Okay.
ANET, sorry.
So let me get this. So this
And
is it
MCAS.
And
called a
MCAS, that's
reader?
actually
Is that
true.
what it is? Reader?
Yes.
All right. So this reader model, all right. So we're adding another test on top of ANET, MCAS, and now there'll be a 3rd test. Is that accurate?
Well, for our multilingual learners, Access is the only test that has anything to do with their language acquisition.
Okay.
Everything else is a content test that they take. So 1 time a year, their language acquisition is tested. That's it.
We need to be able to see, so they take that in January, more or less, and
January,
we need to
February.
see, to benchmark their progress. Our data's flat, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, we're never gonna lie about our data, right? Because
Right,
anybody can go
right.
look it up. Our data's flat. We need to be able to catch kids early, see, this is where they tested, monitor their progress, make some adjustments as needed so that we can make sure we support kids appropriately.
Right, but this
So-
is nothing that we can't get that data from ANET
No,
or MCAS,
no.
or it's completely.
It's a language
It's
test.
focused on just language, correct?
Just, and just as a,
And
our,
benchmark.
right,
Right,
exactly.
okay.
And our newest students, they don't take MCAS, right?
Right.
If they're new to the country first year, they don't have to take, it doesn't, for ELA, it doesn't count. And then the ANET, as Lisa just said, they're not going to be tested, so if they have no language whatsoever. So, but
Right.
we do need a way to monitor their
Yeah.
success and to support them in a more timely fashion.
Right, and I'm not, I mean,
No.
we need to do what we need to do to figure out where these kids
Yep.
are, right? I mean, hands down. But I'm not a big proponent of standardized testing, and I don't know, even know what the test looks like. But adding another test to some of these kids, it just gives me makes me uneasy sometimes.
So-
Because of the anxiety that comes with it, you know?
So what's different about this test is that they have to reading, writing, listening, and speaking.
Yes.
So we do not get that with any other test. The kids do not
Right.
speak. There's no oral language test that the kids take. There's no listening test
Yeah.
that the kids take. And Desi has been very transparent with us that if we are not moving these students, we will not be removed from corrective
Oh, I'm
action.
gonna trust your judgment.
No,
all
I
of
just
you,
want
but
everybody
yeah.
to know that.
I
I
think
want
when
you
it
to
said
have all of the
computer-based,
information.
she was probably thinking, when I
Yeah.
saw computer-based, I was thinking
I did.
ABC,
Yes.
ABC, ABC. What you're describing
So-
sounds more interactive and a little more engaging.
The students actually have to record themselves speaking, and the reason that they went to a computer-based test is that it used to be that the kids were tested one-on-one. So I would test Stephanie, I would be the sole person to be able to, it happened in the moment.
Right.
No one else could listen to that recording, there was no other second opinion, so it was very much.
Becomes kind of subjective.
It was
in that
very
point.
subjective.
Okay.
So that's why they now have moved, and that is true of the access test as well.
Mm-hmm.
What we're hearing a lot of teachers report is that when the kids go to take access, because they have no other assessment where they're doing this, they get the microphone, they don't have any real time being used to doing something like this, so we're also hoping that having them have some times throughout the year that are a little lower stakes than access are going to allow them to adjust and not feel as unsure of themselves when they're taking access. So,
As far as the Wonders curriculum, is that fairly new? Is that a new add-on to Wonders? Like, how old is it?
how long has the company been publishing it?
Yeah,
I would have to
no, no.
I would have to look back at the
Just wondering
publication date.
Why
I do
they
believe
didn't
it's
just bulk everything
I do believe
together,
it's
you know?
fairly. I do believe that it's fairly new.
Yeah, money.
Yeah.
Just wondering.
And there's been a shift, just kind of in the pedagogy of ESL around moving away from these sort of just English language acquisition only curriculums, which is what I taught with. You know, when I was teaching ESL, it was an English language acquisition curriculum. It wasn't so much embedded with the ELA. And then everybody kind of said, well, wait, when do the kids get ELA? And, you know, crickets. Yeah, when they exit ESL. Well, what if they're not exiting ESL for multiple
Right.
years? Yeah, then they're not, you know, so are we setting our kids up? We're filling one gap, if you will, and just creating another one. So this is
Yeah.
aimed at not setting the kid,
Right.
letting them grow their language acquisition while still being able to, not having to sacrifice their ELA content knowledge.
Any questions? Stag, yep.
So on that same issue with the Wonders, am I missing the, when we added this, I thought it was a while ago, and it looks like in here that it's starting in June of 2023, but so it's just starting. But am I wrong to say that we voted for spending that money a year ago or something like that?
Yeah, go ahead.
You can.
Yeah,
I
so-
mean, go ahead.
At the, toward the end, last quarter of the school year last year, AGA did put forth a proposal to purchase materials, the ELL materials. She purchased the bare minimum for the schools. Teachers were getting one student booklet. It was just kind of like, let's look at this and kind of see if it's worth a more comprehensive purchase. And schools have started to use it, and we've gotten some really positive feedback. We've gotten some really positive feedback from teachers and students around the use of the materials, and so now it's ensuring that our kids have what they need in front of them fully.
But I thought we had a meeting where we actually voted because
We
it was
did.
materials.
Subcommittee.
Mm-hmm.
So-
We
Are you
bought
talking about
enough for a
just the
pilot,
Wonders
right?
Wonders.
curriculum,
Pilot.
K to 5, which is,
Yes, he's
was
talking
a
about
big
the
part of
ELA
it,
one.
and that's
Yeah.
for all students.
Only
All students K to 5.
Specifically for the ELL, MLL
I
students.
think at the end of last
We
year,
were
we
told
did
something
meet.
like, we needed to do this for that reason.
Mhm.
So just looking at this, I'm saying, it looks like we didn't really implement it like
No, we
fully.
Well,
But-
I think Lisa has a
It
good
went to
point.
Lord and Laterno.
Right, we
So-
piloted it.
Lord and Laterno will be getting additional materials so that they're not photocopying workbooks and they're not needing to spend time doing that. Each kid will have their own consumable. It's going to then be sent out to the other schools as well. Fonseca is not using this curriculum currently, and Viv is not using this curriculum currently, and
Green.
thank you.
It's
Is
because
not
those
using
schools weren't using Wonders with their foundational students. They were
Correct.
using the language acquisition only program. So when we made the purchase for the 2 schools that had their students engaging in the core content.
But it wasn't it around, this says 71,000. But,
On your quote?
Yeah, 71,000, that's correct.
but and that's gonna get us full for all schools? Like, so if we purchase some things for only those 2 schools in a partial way, we spent a good chunk of money compared to this, if my memory's correct. So I'm almost thinking like, it looks like we're doubling or more, tripling what we're gonna get for the stuff, but in my mind, the amount was almost the same, and it's not your issue. Don't
No,
get me
no,
wrong, I'm just-
the amount that you were looking at last year was a combined
It was.
quote for Wonders MLL and also Wonders core materials.
For our special education
So you can get us
teachers.
that to show just the rationale.
Yes,
When the full
absolutely.
committee comes in.
We'll pull it apart,
We should
yeah,
know,
from
okay,
last
it's
time.
$71,000, the equivalent of this was
Absolutely.
22,000.
Mhm.
Right.
Makes more sense
Yes.
than.
And also just adding some, yes, I can disaggregate all of that for you.
So when you say, when I first saw this about corrective action,
Mm-hmm.
I also tried to think back to any other meetings that we had that where we were told that we were in corrective action in the department, and I can't recall necessarily knowing that and seeing that, so that's not your issue. Preceded you, but what was, how did we become into corrective action? Like, did they come in, do an analysis, and say, here's the 35 recommendations, whatever it is? Because I try to keep everything, and I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yep, so, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that since my coming on board and in the transition of the previous director out, we had been reporting out this year in 2 areas, and one was around, how we train teachers, support teachers around their SEI endorsement, and the other piece had to do with progress monitoring. So we've been reporting back to the department and showing evidence of progress in terms of our own systems over the course of this year. I want to say it was maybe 2020, 2021 was when the monitoring began.
It's as a result of the coordinated program review.
Yeah.
That's what they
Yep.
used to call it at that time. So every 5 years, 6 years, they would come into a district and do a coordinated program review and then give you feedback or recommendations based on what they reviewed. They review records, they review curriculum, they review all kinds of things, and then they give you feedback on that. And now that's changed into focused targeted, focused
Tiered
monitoring,
focused
tiered
monitoring, yep.
focused monitoring. And when you have certain areas that you have to fix, they call that corrective action. So you have to submit reports, evidence that you're putting things into place, whatever they find. So we took that on when we took on, after the previous director left, took on where we were. And we have been working through some of those recommendations. And Lisa had to, as a result, now we have to do, because it was a new director, they asked us to put a full report together in regards to what was recommended, what we have in place, and what we're working towards.
Yeah, if we could just
As
get
a result of the
back,
coordinated
the bigger
panel.
picture of what they
Yep,
saw when they
yep.
came. And when you talk of, I know you said you were gonna talk about money, but this is on the front sheet,
Yeah, that's it.
and that's already approved?
That is not.
We would like it to be referred.
So, we're gonna vote to refer to, so.
Because I looked on the other page, it says completed PO, and I was like, I think that means it's done. I would say.
No, that means that I have to, these are things, so in these reporting periods that I listed at the top of the sheet, those are the things that I need to show them. I have to physically send that to Desi. So I had to list for them everything that I would be sending.
And these are not budget, they're not in the budget that's currently before us. So-
For materials and, yeah, well, they would come out of their grants or materials and supplies that we have, what we have, you know, what we need to purchase.
Right,
the
but that's
additional
not in already
materials.
what we have, that's, I guess, the point of why you hear me.
Well, we
trying
didn't
to
want
say-
to, we didn't want to bring any contracts forth without coming through the subcommittee first, right?
I
We
agree,
wanted
no
where we
problem.
are, and we want to bring these forth on the 15th, but we wanted to make sure we went through the subcommittee, and then we'll go through.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, I'm just saying, I was curious if these, you know, how we were
As
saying,
part of-
some
yes.
are already listed in line items
Right.
in the budget.
These are not.
So these are both.
Not yet, because
need
we
to
haven't,
both
we haven't got
approve it,
approved.
Yeah.
Yes.
But we also have, but there's things that don't look like that are in the budget, was my question, that's all. So we need to
Okay.
approve to make the payment and amend the
Yep,
budget to
yep.
include it. So moved.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Second?
Wait, second.
Oh, I need a motion.
I did.
You did.
Mr. Aguirre,
Second.
All right.
Mr.
Forgot
Aguirre?
about
Yes.
that part.
Ms. Larrabee?
Yes.
Ms. Pereira?
Yes.
Welcome and thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Let me know
nice
if
to meet you.
if there's anything else you require, more information about anything, please reach out at any time. I'm happy to
Thank you.
share anything.
We're now going to move on to 3.3, discussion and vote to refer ELA middle school curriculum adoption. Ms. Kennedy?
Hello. So you've seen this proposed adoption timeline several times between instructional subcommittee and then also the memos that go out on Friday. And we've also spoken quite extensively around what the plan was. There have been a couple of things added since then just to strengthen the buy-in from teachers and the support that we'll need as a department in order to make this happen. And so, as you can see throughout this, there has been a heavy presence from our teaching population, our ELA middle school teachers. We started with digging into the research around the two programs that we were going to adopt, identifying priorities and involving teachers in that prioritization. And then we started a pilot, as you know. Throughout the entirety of the pilot, we've been going into classrooms and looking at both the materials and the student engagement in the instruction. And most recently, because I think we've talked all the way up till March. So in March, we had our half-day PD. And on that day, all of our ELA teachers went to Morton and engaged in 2 different sessions around the 2 curricular materials that we were piloting. The first one being Amplify 6 to 8, and the second one was Springboard by College Board. And so we were lucky enough to have 2 things happen within each one of these sessions. The first one was a half-hour presentation from the publisher. And in that half-hour presentation, it wasn't a sales pitch. It was very targeted to our priorities. So I emailed them the list of priorities and asked them to speak specifically to these priorities and not try to sell us something. Because we have limited time and no teacher wants to sit through that. And so they did a quick presentation virtually, and then they engaged in a lesson with a classroom teacher and an academic lead. And so Ms. Zagarella was one of the people who, as the Henry Lord coach, who worked alongside the 7th grade teacher at Henry Lord with half of our ELA staff, middle school staff, and presented a lesson to the teachers, had them walk through the platform, experience it like a student would, but also kind of see in the mind of the teacher when it came to the planning piece around the lesson. And then Amplify was done by Henry Lord and Doran, so Ms. Zagarella and Ms. Gidley did the Amplify curriculum. Then in the other room, it was the Springboard by College Board, and the same thing happened with Ms. Tavares, the 7th grade teacher at Morton, along with Tara O'Brien, the ELA department head at Morton. And then halfway through, the teachers switched, so they were able to experience both of these programs, the presentation and the model lesson. afterwards, during that, I should say, they were also charting questions that they had around the curricular materials. We answered the questions that we could answer, and then I sent the other questions to the two publishers. And even if a question was about one curricular material, I sent it out to both publishers so we would have answers from both of the programs. And an email was sent out to staff following that with all the login information, all the answers to the questions, the recorded session for the PD, and then I just kept adding to that as far as like when question answers started rolling in, I rolled them out to teachers. Additionally, throughout this whole thing, principals and other administrators were kept in the loop as to where we were in the decision process. About a week later, I sent a survey out to all of our staff that attended the PD, and then they voted for which program they would recommend for Fall River Public School kiddos.
Substantially.
Yeah, and so it was really cool because we saw people from every single school kind of putting in their recommendation, and from all grade levels and different subgroups, and then the recommendations. But I thought the most interesting piece is that they provided really solid rationale for why one over the other. And so you can see that about 73% of our staff recommended Amplify 6 to 8. In their reasoning is bulleted underneath: rich, rigorous, engaging, and diverse text. The program itself is created for the middle school brain, which is something that differentiates it from any other program that's out there. The usability features that benefit students, their learning styles, there is built-in scaffolding, a large text library that students can go home and take advantage of, as well as take advantage of in school. It has a user-friendly interface. It's really like when you go into the room, Miss Bernier from the high school went in to do one of the walks with us, and she was like, wow, it's just like really, really engaging for kids. Lots of writing, and it's super interactive. And then also usability features for teachers. One of the big points was around auto grading and allowing teachers to, instead of having to rubric score the kids, although I always suggest rubric score them and make sure you agree, but that they could focus their energy on the feedback piece of it so that students know how to improve their writing rather than you got a 2 out of 4.
Right.
It speaks to power schools. It has just-in-time scaffolding built in to the program for the teacher, where the teacher hovers over, and it sometimes will even give you a script of how you could do a just-in-time kind of scaffold if a child's stuck with their writing, or the child says, I'm done. Like, what could the teacher say to prompt more engagement? It's easy to navigate, and there is detailed support. So, in addition to that, we also applied for Gleam, which we let you know through the Friday memo. And Gleam is paying up to 50% of the cost of the program, and a portion of the professional development package for teachers for year 1. And then in year 2, they will support us in some of the monies toward the year 2 PD for our teachers. Questions?
Any questions, Mr. Aguirre?
Not so much as a question, but a comment. So this is, I think, the way we should do things. The way this is thorough, we went through this, you brought it to the subcommittee, we checked it, you were up front, you told us about the grant, we told you to spend the money either way. You came back to us with this, you went to the teachers, this is how I think all decisions about this stuff should go, just me speaking. When I look at the ELA, so if this is for the middle school English, what is the comparable in math? What is the programming cost for that?
Oh, I don't know if I can answer that question.
What is the program?
Carnegie?
Carnegie.
Yep.
We've invested in that.
That's my point.
Carnegie.
So I'm
Yes.
trying to, in my head, think of, so we, for years, have never had
That's right.
curriculum. So
That's right.
we have this. So if we had math curriculum and it costs $600,000, something like that, and then we have this one that costs $300,000 or $500,000, relatively speaking, it helps to make a decision on what we should do. Like, do we if it's 600,000, let's say, or $100,000 more than this, I would recommend that we spend $100,000 towards the future while we have the money. Like, that's what I'm saying. So I
Yeah.
100% agree with but I just wanted to comment that this is the way it's supposed to go.
Thanks.
This is, I think, the right way to do it. It makes the decisions pretty easy, as far as I'm concerned, so. make a
So
motion to
the good
approve.
thing about, oh,
Second.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
No,
Ms.
go
Kennedy.
ahead.
I'm just gonna keep
No,
going.
please, go ahead.
Yeah, I remember Mr. Aguirre had to shut me down last time.
In a nice way, though. It was in a nice way.
It was like, enough. This package does include 4 years of teacher and student digital licenses, as well as 4 years of consumables for our kids, which is really important, because what I want teachers to know that this is here to stay. It's all too often that in education, whether in Fall River or not, it's like a one-hit wonder. You know, you do it for a year and then all of a sudden you're changing it. Just like with Wonders, we need to stay the course and stay with fidelity to the program. That's what the research-based is focused on. And then in addition, Mr. Aguirre, in response to the Carnegie piece of it, with this package for PD, I tried to make it as close to the Carnegie package as I could. The Carnegie package is just really comprehensive. There's in-school coaching. They're taking the leadership on walks and looking at what instruction looks like in the classroom. And so when I think about Wonders, our package was pretty basic, and I'm like, darn it, you know, like we could have potentially, they were offering more, but it would have been great if they were. But I think that we're spending a large chunk of money on that professional development in support of the teachers and
It's Carnegie's
kids.
to high school too, right? The math one?
Yes.
is
Yeah.
Combined?
Yeah.
So I remember the high school
Right.
math guy was, so the English at the high school has a different, so if we were trying to compare the
Right,
English
right.
to math, we
Yes.
have to just make sure we compare them all. But-
Well,
Yeah.
for the first time, we have consistent curriculum all the way. This will allow us to have ELA now. We've purchased elementary math, elementary ELA, middle school math, middle school. So for the first time, we have consistency across the board.
Thank you.
Which is great.
High school is still a work in progress right now. We only have pre-AP springboard in 9th and potentially 10th grade. There might be a little leak into 10th grade. But we've spoken about like starting to explore some options there. I don't think that'll be something that happens next year, but I think the communication has started, and that's important.
Good to know. I think the motion's
Yes.
roll call.
Motion, second.
Mr. Agia?
Yes.
Ms. Larrabee?
Yes.
Ms. Ferraro?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And so this will go before in May?
Yes.
It should, right? Maybe.
Yes.
Finally, 3.4, discussion and vote to refer TNTP partnership renewal, presented by Dr. Curley.
Thank you. So we, as you know, we began our partnership with TNTP over the last couple of years. It actually was born out of programming from the Department of Ed, where we were partnered, where we started working with TNTP around our instructional priority. That was something that we brought, into the district as a district priority, and then into schools, so schools could start developing their instructional priorities aligned with a district-wide priority. We've been meeting with TNTP as part of a statewide initiative, pretty much bi-weekly for the last year and a half to 2 years. And that has been, that's been the partner that's really helped us drive our work in terms of, developing the instructional priority and then really making sure that that instructional priority is driving all of the work in decision-making. So in addition to that work this year, we started to do work within our schools around ILT. So just as we were strengthening our district ILT through a teaching and learning team, we were looking to support schools to support their teams as well. We partnered with TNTP this year to do some work with school-based ILTs. They came out to do learning walks in schools. They, developed feedback for schools, and then started doing these plan, do, study, act cycles, PDSA cycles with schools, 6 to 8 weeks. That's a project that's actually closing out this year. So based on that feedback, from principals, we started to explore the possibility of looking into next year to continue some of that project work around our ILTs, and then looked to potentially do some other things. So that's what's outlined here in the proposal. Continuing the work with our ILTs. Also looking at teacher leadership. That's been, the teacher leader position is something that has grown really in terms of the frequency of the requests. Some schools have a teacher leader at each grade level, some are content specific and things like that, but we're certainly seeing more and more of them. And then in an effort to really build some consistency around how we are supporting teacher leaders and building them up as leaders, and then also in building some consistency across schools in terms of what is expected of their teacher leaders. We started to explore possible programming with TNTP to do that kind of capacity building. The third piece that's in here is around new teacher support. So we have an induction program that's with guidelines that adhere to what is required by the state. And our new teachers have mentors and things like that. But when we're starting to think about teacher recruitment and retention, we'd like to develop a more robust program, something that's consistent again across schools. We've gotten proposals from individual schools with, here's how these to pay for monthly meetings and materials to support teachers. It looks a little different at each school. And again, just trying to build some consistency in something that shouldn't be school dependent. One school is offering it, another school is not. Can we develop a district program so that we're supporting all schools and then support schools further so that they can say, here's what we're doing across the district, and then we're going to add this little piece, maybe because of a particular program they have in their school, or maybe because of the number of new teachers they have, and things like that. So there are three pieces here that I mentioned: the teacher leadership, the ILT work, and the new teacher support. I used feedback from principals, heard back from every single one. I summarized it there, the kinds of things, here's what's in the proposal, what are you thinking? Is this something that you want to move forward with? Overwhelmingly, people said it's aligned with what we're doing, let's get to it. Some of the feedback was it's language that's already in the proposal that says we want to make sure it's personalized, whether it's because we've already been doing a lot of work with our ILT, and we want feedback that's not for the masses. We want school-based feedback. It's already part of the proposal. Or we're already doing work with our new teachers. We don't want to sacrifice that. We want to get on board with what the district is doing so that we have those plans in common with other schools. But what about this extra little piece? Can we still do this with our teachers? So those are the things that I would be bringing back to TNTP just to make sure that all of these things are built into the planning for next year. With the go-ahead, the plan is to work with Jay Correa, Tom Coogan around the new teacher program to make sure that we are doing something that complements what the existing teacher induction program does. That we'd be working with our school-based leaders, instructional leads from those buildings, so that we can develop what that teacher leadership piece will look like. The idea for all of these pieces is really around capacity building. I was really clear with TNTP that we're looking right now at what can we do to build us up over the next year. Not a long-term contract, but really capacity building of leaders so that these are structures that will live on in the schools and or across the district.
Any questions? Mr. Aguirre?
So I agree with what you're saying about consistency in all schools. And it's a good chunk of money, but we want to get something out of it. When I look at just this 8 principals, so that is sort of goes against, in my mind, of the consistency across all schools.
Sure, it's
Is
just
that
8 at a
strictly
time.
financial?
So it's 8 at a time. So they're doing so the idea there would be to work in cycles. So it's providing coaching for 8 principals beginning in November, and then an additional 8 principals in December, and there's going to be like kind of a rotating piece. So they might get their coaching in November. In January, another set of principals
So
might
it's
get.
not 8.
It's not a total of 8.
All
It's
get it.
8
It's
at a
8
time.
each time.
And we don't have 24, but they're going to be multiple months. It's not just one time.
Right,
Right.
and we might have principals, one of the things that the principals, so that the other 8 are on the next page. So it's a total of 32 different opportunities, so each principal will get their coaching twice. What we were able to do this year with TNTP was within the confines of the contract itself and within the agreement that we paid for this year, we recognized that at the beginning of the year, when all of the ILTs convened, it was way too large of a group. When they did it, when we did our second meeting and subsequent meetings, they got us into small groups. We have a closing that was scheduled. It was supposed to be all schools on May 15th. Now they're actually breaking up that large meeting of 16 schools into 4 different meetings. And so they're just taking the resource allotment and potentially, instead of co-facilitating, they're having facilitators split up and go to 2 different groups. So they've been really responsive to the kinds of things that, any issues that have come up, any feedback that they get during one session, they'll tweak it for the next. So in this one, it was just really specific that they might only have the capacity to coach 8 principals at a time. So we're going to develop a plan that says, these are the priority people. Whereas where some people said, I feel like I kind of got this, we would put them in round 2 because there isn't as much.
And is somebody going to analyze whether they do have it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you go back,
Yeah.
my question is, at the end of June of 2024, what would the district look like related to this? So that to me is the one pager, the one liner of, this is what we expect by the end of June, so that all people will be doing like things in all of the schools. To me, that makes sense. And if you're not, then that means you're probably not, you don't have the capacity to do the work if you haven't taken that training and moved yourself and your school. So
We're not building capacity if they're not taking it and
Right.
applying it, right? So
that's what I'm saying. So at the end
Absolutely.
of June, you'll be able to tell us, all the schools, did it, and Kevin was just not receptive or whatever. So then Kevin's no longer a principal or something or whatever. Like,
Well, I mean,
you know
we'll
what I
do
mean?
an
Like,
update.
within
Yeah,
reason,
absolutely.
That the goal is so that we're not just wasting this money. Not saying we waste money, but you
Right.
know what I mean. We want to spend it and then have everybody doing similar.
Well, we
type
want to
of-
invest in our people, right? I agree with you. What we are trying to do district-wide, we have been trying to do is putting systems in place, but all those systems, we need to monitor them and to assess them and say, yeah, that was a good investment. No, that we've done that with TNTP. We've pivoted and made some adjustments based on feedback, et cetera. But if we're going to invest hundreds of, this is the time, right? We have money and we should be putting it right back into our schools, into our kids as well as our adults. But they need to result in something, right? We know where we are as a district, and these investments need to yield increased student achievement. That's really what is at the core of everything that we do. So we have to put systems in place. I agree with you. We need to see something for it.
No, I agree. And I think when you look at that, I've been vocal about trying to say we need more central office administration too, because all you people are limited as well. Like this, some of these things are jobs in and of itself for a person. So when I've been advocating for more positions under you, it's not because I think you just need to sit down and eat bonbons. And, but I do think that you need layers of support so that people are reporting to the right people. So I'm totally in favor of it. So I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
To refer.
Motion to refer to full committee. We have motions. Kevin Staggia, second by.
Ms. Dragia?
Yes.
Ms. Larrabee?
Yes.
Ms. Perot?
Yes.
New business? Is there any new business?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Ms. Dragia?
Yes.
Ms. Larrabee?
Yes.
Ms. Perot?
Yes.
I love